Okay, so Brandon, this is a play you wanted to talk about. I think there was you incorrectly threw a flag for illegal block below the waist on a change of possession. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. So we know that once we have a change of possession, block below the waist is basically out, right? Even if it's 10-2, you cannot cut another player after a change of possession. I got the rule right?
Yep.
Okay. So this play.
So
Yep.
hold on.
Yep.
Go
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 ahead.
back to the beginning.
All right.
What? Why don't you just talk about what are you doing? What are you
Sure.
pre-snap just really briefly? What are you doing? What are you
Yeah.
looking?
Yeah, sure. Pre-snap. So here we know we've got double, one back in the backfield. So we know it's double. I try to map the formation, and then, so I know that pre-snap, I've got these stationary backs in tackle box. The other thing I've tried to do pre-snap is map where these defensive linemen are, and then just kind of the body language of these linebackers. So, like these linebackers are set. They might blitz, but it's not like an immediate blitz threat because they're kind of in that set position. Not sure what this guy is going to do. My guess is he's going to cover that guy,
Hmm.
but he also is in a different type of body posture. So I look for those, because when like players kind of, they're not set, but they kind of just meander up here and then they can go right away. It's a rush, rush around the end, real speed rush type of look. And that's just important to know because then it doesn't catch us by surprise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Let me ask you this: with
Yep.
the left defensive end being so far wide in
Yep.
what is that, the C gap? He's way out there.
Right.
If the speed rusher, does that concern you and give you does that make you give special attention or extra attention to the right side of that line?
Actually, yes, in my mind, but you know that you have time to transition there because
Ah,
this isn't going to be a threat until, a couple beats after the snap.
right.
Now, what we also know is that our umpires are probably going to start with this player in the A gap.
Yes.
That's just where they're probably going to start. So, what does that mean, center judges? You have to know that you pretty much have the potential to work both of these matchups. Okay. And obviously, think they can stunt, they can do all these other things, but that's kind of how we know at the start. But that's a great point. With this man right here being so flexed out this way, it gives me the opportunity to, maybe check in here, maybe read the offensive lineman's posture on pass or run, pull, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, a lot of times these guys will be so split out, and then they take this kind of wider arc, especially like playing a quarterback like this. That's probably by design to help try to keep him in the pocket so he can't hurt you with his feet. But when they take that wider arc, we don't just have to watch them until there's actually a threat. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right,
But
cool.
so you mentioned something just now, especially against this quarterback.
Yeah.
So you know that this is a quarterback. This is Kyler Murray. So this is a couple years ago. Obviously,
Right.
you know that this is a quarterback that can run and that can move. So
Yes.
in kind of in your process too.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you didn't do any, you know, pre-week preparation by watching him, all you pretty much have to do is watch him in warm-ups and take a one snap, and then he's immediately the best athlete on the field. He's
Right.
one of those types of players. But no, it's important. I think we've talked about to prepare for your teams and make sure you know
Okay.
the capabilities of your quarterbacks and those kinds of things.
And so it's second and 23. What does that play? Does that play anything into your thought process um, as you're preparing for this play?
I don't know. I mean, I guess obviously percentages would call for a pass, but so what? It's not like I'm not going to read the play,
Gotcha.
because
Yeah.
if it's a run, if I think it's a pass and it's a run, am I immediately going to be at a disadvantage to officiate the play? Well, if the answer is yes, then I'm not doing a very good job. So who cares that I'm thinking pass? Football fans are probably thinking pass, but like I said, if it's a run, I still got to officiate a run. So I don't put too much stock in that. I mean, if
That's
it's
interesting.
if it's at the end of the game and it's like this and maybe they're down 4, they need a Hail Mary, well, then maybe we should probably adjust, and be ready to cover the Hail Mary. But second and 23, it could easily be a screen, a quarterback draw. It could be a intermediate pass. It could be a deep pass. it could be a sweep. Yeah, I don't know. But so to me, 2nd and 23, that doesn't really impact my process that much.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Cool. So I know, and Corey can echo this. When working deep, if it's 2nd and 23, basically down the distance lets me know what I need to do with my feet.
Mm,
Because when working a deep position, we have to move obviously a lot more than the referees have to move, and sometimes we need to really move, and other times we need to maybe slowly move. So other times we don't need to move at all. But
yeah.
and down and distance really helps us kind of understand how we need to move on a particular play.
Yeah, yeah, that absolutely, absolutely. You
I'm
you
saying
guys move a lot more,
I
but
guess I'm not a deep official anymore. So
I feel like that was a little bit of a slight at the physical requirements of a referee.
no, it was
But
factual. It was
we'll just move on. We'll just move on from that. All right.
all right, go ahead. You can
Anything
run the
else
play.
pre-snap?
No, I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you.
I
You
like
go ahead,
that.
run the play.
That's good. That's good. I wasn't anticipating that, but that's good. All right. So here we go. Play action. And look, quarterback gives a run. I think it's more of an RPO look, but right here, his body posture is almost like he's going to run, just like we talked about. Then he pulls up, passes. I guess I'm doing a little play by play. So we got an interception. And then we're going to see some players hit the ground. Okay. So this is the camera shots aren't great, but just want to talk through. We know that, from the referee position after an interception, we're pretty much kind of got our eyes locked on the quarterback. And I wish we had a camera angle to show positioning, but apparently those have been wiped from the archives. All right. So what we're going to call is the result basically of this action right here. Okay. So that's the quarterback who just threw the pass. And then, some of these quarterbacks will act like they're going to go make a tackle. Some of them won't. And either way, I think, do you agree we got to watch them? If there's players around them after a change of possession, we got to watch them. At least that's my thought process. So we see this action and we throw the flag, okay? And why do we throw we call a low, illegal block below the waist. And so I know that the angle that this was called from, because I called it, was more like this way. And it wasn't so much this way. You know what I should do? Let's draw that with a different color. What do you think? Let me throw this to you real quick. What do you think the better angle would be to really see the contact here and make a very quality call? Do you think it'd be the green angle or the blue angle?
Well, definitely the blue angle, and
Yeah,
especially if there's players in between the arrow and the person who threw the flag on the green.
which
Yeah,
there was.
yeah, and
Yes.
that kind of goes against some of the things that I like to think. I would think most of the time you'd want that perpendicular angle versus a parallel angle.
I was thinking the same thing, Corey.
Most of the time you want that green arrow,
So
but this may be one of those times where it kind of fooled you.
That's what happens, right? I mean, you throw this flag because you think that he cuts him low. And, maybe if you're seeing it, if you just saw a still shot there's a chance he gets his right knee. But there's other angles, which unfortunately we don't have. I don't know what happened to him, but I couldn't find them. There's other angles that showed there was actually no contact at all. So number 33 in the white jersey just kind of rushes him down and kind of falls over him without real, if there's any contact, it is so insignificant that this doesn't rise to the level of a foul. All right. So it's a good learning play because, and can I just be honest for 1 second? If I saw this again, I'm not sure I wouldn't make the same mistake, but we want to try to, I know the whole point is to learn from this. We just need to see forceful contact to make these calls, right? I mean, that's what we need to see. And if we don't see that, we have to fight that urge to throw the flag. And also as a crew, what I think the trap we can tend to get into on these types of plays, because we're all kind of moving, and go back to the Virus Virtual Clinic. Corey did a great session on reverse mechanics. Remember that?
Yeah.
And what part of what he talked about was that, some of our pitfalls is all of us just start looking at the football because we're on the move and things are kind of more in scramble mode. Mechanics aren't as defined. I think if we can afford it, like maybe from the line of scrimmage position up here, are you looking at the ball? Hopefully not. hopefully, and not that you would be absolutely looking at this block, but maybe you're looking at different blocks out in front, if that turns into anything, whatever. The point is, it's so easy for us just to kind of fall back down to kind of how we were when we started officiating, which was, let's make sure we watch the football. And here, the last thing we need to really do is watch the football. There's really nothing that can happen to the guy with the football other than a potential targeting, face mask, those kinds of things. But somebody's going to see that. If you're an off official, especially who doesn't have spot responsibility, let's try to watch blocks. And I think, that's not an excuse of why this became an incorrect call. This was an incorrect call because the person who threw the flag, like me, called it incorrectly. But could there have been somebody, our crew talked about this the next week, could there have been somebody else who saw that, and then offered another opinion? So that would be just a good discussion to have.
Was there any discussion on the field, Brand? I can't remember.
No, there wasn't. No.
So I'm gonna go in left field then, out on left field with this question then, Brandon.
Mhm.
It's kind of a two-part question. I guess my first part of the question is a setup, and then the next question is the real question. How many times has someone come and told you to pick up a flag, you being the referee? And then from I guess the real question I'm asking is, are officials comfortable to bring information to have the referee pick up his flag, or are officials too trusting of the referee that whatever flag the referee throws is correct?
Well, I sure hope not. I mean,
Well, I know, but
if you have, right.
The two-part question,
Okay.
how many times, I guess there's more of a rhetorical, but it's not really rhetorical, because I don't want you don't need to obviously tell me, yeah, well, 2 times or 3 times, but does that happen? Have people come, or are you just that great that you don't throw flags?
Well, obviously I do right here. It doesn't happen. No, I mean, it hasn't happened, but our calls are not, I would say the majority of our calls are not ones that have, multiple sets of eyes. Running into the kicker, roughing the passer, hopefully the center judge collaborates. So we've had some discussions about that, I guess.
Yeah.
But I see your point. But I would hope if anybody sees anything that the referee calls and you disagree with the call, at least provide the information.
Right.
Can I speak as a non-referee to that point?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't ever put that into consideration, to be honest with you. I mean,
Good.
Brandon makes a good point that there's very few times where where a referee is going to overlap with a different position, other than maybe a hold or something like that. But we had a play last year where the referee threw on a late hit, downfield. The 3 deeps went to him like it was, like he was giving away free money, and just bombarded him and said, no, we need to pick this up. So I mean, personally, I don't think I've ever considered, the referee threw that flag, so it's got to be right. It's just, the referee's obviously the crew leader, but at the same time, he's just one of the team.
Good. Okay, so that means it wasn't a hypothesis. It was just, I guess, a pondering. My pondering was
Your
was
concern.
there.
Yeah. Okay, so then just real quick, we throw this flag. How do we enforce this? Would it be spot of the foul? Would it be end of the run? So the end of the run eventually is, unfortunately, it's kind of in the same spot. But realistically, let's just, and I know it's only a yard difference, but just for the purposes of getting good with penalty enforcement, end of the run here, probably we put the flag at the big line or whatever, doesn't matter. So let's say two instances. Oh man, let me do this again. I got to get my arrow game going 2 times. Holy smokes. All right, end of the run is pink. And let's say we have spot of the foul at blue or spot of the foul at green. Okay, the question would be, does the spot of the foul impact the penalty enforcement here?
Of course it does.
Okay, why?
No, it doesn't.
Running play.
It's a running play. So, okay, so the basic spot is going to be what?
The end of the run.
End of the run, which is the pink arrow.
That's correct.
Okay. So if we have spot of the foul at the blue arrow, then we would go what?
15 from the pink.
No.
Well, who's the foul on? See,
Fouls on the passing team, the red jerseys. They're the kind of the new
okay, yeah.
defense.
Yeah, we
Yep.
go 15 from the pink.
No. If we had, excuse me. Yes. Okay. The foul is on the team in the red jersey. The end of the run is at the pink. So let's say the spot of the foul is at the blue arrow. Where would we go from?
The pink. 15 from the pink.
15 from the pink, 15 this way. Okay. Let's say the spot of the foul was at the green arrow. Where would we go from?
15 from the
15
pink.
from the, oh,
15 from the pink.
that's right.
Okay.
I just tricked myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So isn't that the point? Change of
Yeah.
possession, fouls, very confusing. Seriously.
Oh, wow.
We confused ourselves.
We did. That's cool, though. I love that.
Okay,
man.
good,
Oh,
good. That was the point, even though I was part of the confusion. Okay, good. What do we got to know? Look, 3-and-1 principle is really easy until we get on the field, and people are screaming and everybody's confused like we just were.
right.
So the foul is by the team not in possession. During a running play. End of the run is the basic spot. Team not in possession, that means we're going to enforce from the basic spot, period, right? So
Right.
spot of the foul doesn't matter in this case. Now, if the foul was by the team in the white jersey back
Yeah.
here, now we're
Yeah.
behind, so we
That's right.
enforce from there. If
That's
the
right.
foul is by the white jersey up here, we're in front, so we'd go from the end of the run.
That's right. That is cool, man. I love that you brought that part up, Brandon, because I wasn't, of course, I'm just sitting, oh, that's easy, 3-and-1. Of course it matters, but
Exactly.
it's not that simple until you actually talk about it.
Well, I think what confuses us on this is that we think of it as a running play, but it's one of those running plays where there's no neutral zone. So that's where the end of the run is always the basic spot.
That's right. And so only one time would we go from the spot of the foul, which was if the spot is behind and it was by the team in possession.
Correct. Correct.
Yep. Yeah, good point. So you would think without a neutral zone, it'd be easier until we get on here and just completely almost botch it. Okay, one more point I wanted to make, and then we can wrap with any other, incorrect call, post-traumatic stress, or whatever that's called. Look, these can be tricky. We can see contact low on these types of plays and it not be a foul easy. So what am I talking about? Let's see, what kind of pretend situation could I see? Okay, let's say right here, number 5 is going to try to tackle this, the guy who intercepted the pass. And he dives right here and he goes into this man's legs low. So green arrow is him attempting to tackle. Pink arrow, he forcibly contacts that player low. What do you got?
Nothing.
That would be considered incidental contact. So there would be no intent around him blocking the guy, the pink arrow would be no intent of him blocking that player low. So it would not be a foul, even if it was forcible contact below the waist. Okay, on the other hand, let's say green arrow, he goes low to tackle, and then pink arrow, as he goes low to tackle, he goes forcibly through this man's waist into the ball carrier. Now what do you got?
That's a foul.
You said weight? Through his
he goes
weight?
through below his waist. I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's
okay.
not what I meant to say. Bad
Okay.
arrow. Okay, he goes below his waist forcibly to try to tackle.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't go
That's
through
a foul.
like that. Yeah.
That's a foul. So you might say, well, wait, that's kind of incidental too. He's trying to tackle him, but you can't go. Your intent is to go low. There's a player there that is a block by definition, so even though you're trying to tackle, good, but you can't go low through another player to tackle. So that's a subtle difference, right? If you try to tackle and then after that you incidentally, contact a player low with force, not a foul. If you try to tackle but you go through a player low with force to make the tackle, that is a foul for an illegal low block. And then just to wrap this up, if you dive to protect yourself and make no contact at all, like this player, that's not a foul. So don't throw our flag. And the bottom line is, let's just try to see what we call, and it's moving fast. We got to put ourselves in good angles. If we see something and we're just not sure, other than targeting, because targeting still is a foul by rule, even if there's doubt.
That's right.
But if we're not sure and we don't see it 100%, let's not call it. You agree?
Somewhat.
Okay.
All right. So in the same vein of block below the waist, this was, it happens at a field where I seem to struggle from time to time. So it's perfect that it happened here. But what we're going to be watching is the action on the number 2 receiver on this. I think it's a third down play.
Corey, you at the bottom?
Yeah, I'm at the bottom.
Okay.
I'm at
So why don't you talk about like pre-snap? Obviously there's some space there. We've covered that concept before, but what are you looking at
Well, no,
before?
that's important though. I mean, we talked about down and distance as kind of an indicator of how we're going to move. I think a lot of times I dictate how I'm going to move more off of the coverage than
Oh,
off of the down and distance, because if I know a guy is pressed, I can't sneak that peek inside, to see what's happening with the, where's the action of the play going as much.
right,
So I'm
right.
kind of more in a position, or at least more of a higher state of readiness to have to run fast than be able to settle in. But when I see coverage like this, I know that, hey, I got time. I've given myself a good cushion, and that's one of the things. That's why I start at 25 yards for that reason.
Oh,
It
good point.
gives me. I mean, I used to be 20, 22, but the first thing you're doing is moving backwards. So I started doing 25 because then you could, you have that extra second to decide if you need to run. But with a situation like this, I'm looking at both players, but I'm also sneaking a peek inside it, to see what does that tackle and guard do to kind of help me know what type of play is coming my way. But
Right.
that's something that I've done for a long time, because you have that time with no threat. So, but yeah, that's my pre-snap on this one. And sorry about the volume on that there. Get this to where it's actually going. So it's third and whatever, 3rd and 9. And the action we're looking at is that one where the bad flight comes in. So right there at the minus 29-ish. All right, so we're looking at this action. Where's my controls go now? There it is. At the 29, it's a simple nothing play, really. I mean, from a cover standpoint for a deep wing, this is an easy transition to get to that first block, because I mean, I think that's where our eyes need to go as a deep wing. I mean, just like Brandon's play, the other angles that have been since erased from the annals of college football history. So we have to go with this one, but we'll get a good view from behind. Because obviously this was not a good call for block below the waist, and I'll go through as to why, what in my thought process went wrong on this after we see this next angle. So let me get to that part. Here we go. So, I think mechanically, I was happy that, I did transition that, because my initial key isn't doing anything. But I'll be honest, when I saw this play, the first thing that went through my mind was, okay, that's real close to 5 yards. And so I processed that and say, okay, because, part of my pre-snap is to know the line of scrimmage. I verbally say to myself, the line of scrimmage yard line, and then the 5 yards beyond yard line, just so I know. And I can easily, remember that. So I knew that I think we're at the 24, 25, and this happened to 29. So I knew we were good. And I think in the time that I processed that, I lost the relation of, okay, what was the angle of this player coming in? And when I look back, I see it at this point. And it looks to me at that, okay, he's going back towards the original position of the ball. Yep. Which then solidified it erroneously in my mind that this was a foul for block below the waist. And, unlike Brandon's play, I did have input from the umpire on this, but the input was just the 5-yard aspect of it. And to which I said, no, I had him before, within the 5 yards, I had it back towards the original position of the ball. And at that point, the umpire said, okay, I don't have anything to help with on that one. So,
well, look at how they're laying on the ground right after the contact.
Right.
I mean, I can tell why you were fooled, So that's, man, because right there, as they're just laying on the ground, it does kind of look like everything's angled back toward the middle of the field.
Right. Because this is, after I'm doing my processing and everything, and this was kind of the still shot in my mind's eye.
Right.
That is like, okay, this is a foul. And I didn't, I needed to go back and kind of replay that, while I'm sitting there replaying and worrying about the 5-yard aspect, I need to replay, okay, what was the blocker's body angle
approach, right? And that's what we want to
we want this
right there.
That's what I remember.
That shows that of why it's not a foul right there.
Right there. Yep.
Really the blockers kind of hips and feet orientation are a really good indicator, but that's the detail of the block, and that other part is just kind of the aftermath part, Corey. I think that kind of convinces you is just I don't know how to say it, but just like if you're just observing it from a broad perspective, I mean, exactly what you said. It looks all the world like he comes from the inside. And even right now, you can tell like his upper body, his torso is almost angles there a little bit. I mean, we're a little bit fooled, I think, by the angle of the camera. But when you look at his feet and his hips in relation to those big lines, that's our indicator. I think you guys covered this. I'm sorry if I missed it. Where did 86 come from pre-snap, Corey?
He was a slot. He's the number 2 guy.
Okay, so you were working 2 and you had that space and you were able to get into this block.
Because you can see, I mean, my initial key's up there at the 32. I mean, he's in space. He's not doing anything.
Yeah,
so
that's number 2.
There's no reason, and I, my line of scrimmage partner, he didn't have anything for me, and which we discussed, that was part of the post, once we saw this, we talked about that. And, he said he didn't really, I think he said he was worried about the forward backward aspect of the pass. And then when he got to this, he was off that key. And so I think we kind of learned from that aspect as well, from a line of scrimmage and deep partner type of thing. I don't know.
Sure.
He thought, he said, well, I should have been out there sooner on that. And,
yes.
And I mean, it's no excuse for me to make a bad call.
Right.
But I think we can always learn from any mistake anywhere on the field, whether it's our mistake or, our sideline partner's mistake or our referee, whatever. I mean, we can all learn from that. And what can we do to help?
That's just it. When we make incorrect calls or calls that we would rather not have, whatever, part of the review process is, could anybody else have seen this? And as a team, could we have, got to the right answer, however that would be with communication, with a conference after the play. And so this would be a great one for the line of scrimmage official to say, okay, really forward, backward. I mean, first of all, this is the head line judge. So double formation. Let's leave forward, backward more to the line judge. Because we know the line judge's initial key is this back, right, that catches the pass. Right. So let's leave forward, backward more primary to the line judge in this case. As the head line judge, you have number 2 down here at the bottom, number 2 receiver. And so at the point where he is a threat to foul or be fouled, I would still prefer, maybe this is easier said than done, but I would still prefer our head line judge's eyes be on that contact. And I think that was the discussion.
It was.
I agree with all of those things. I think maybe the trap that the headline judge falls into here is something we've talked about a lot, and that is just prioritizing what you're officiating. And so when we look pre-snap, he's got 8 yards from his initial key. So in his mind, he's thinking, I've got time to either, help with that tackle, to read the play, or maybe in that instance to see, okay, I've got a tight forward backwards coming at me. Maybe I'll be able to work this and then get back to my guy. And what we see is that the ball's being caught almost simultaneously with the block. So I think, I guess what I'm saying is that that's a little bit more challenging, I think, than at first blush when you just look at that out in space. Well, there's no reason for him to do that forward backward because the line judge can help, and then there's nobody even threatening the receiver. But I think it's because we've talked about so many times, if your guy's not threatened, let's find something to officiate. But the counter to that is we have to have a sense to be able to get back when our guy is threatened. because we may need to contribute. So I think that's from a short wing perspective, I think this is a really, really good play for them to study and kind of work through. Like you said, Brandon, that acknowledgement that my line judge can help with that forward backwards because I have this receiver key. But at the same time, we don't want him watching him at the very, very beginning because of all that space.
Right.
And then the other thing I would say that this play illustrates that we've talked about a lot, and Corey, unfortunate with the flag, but from a visual mechanics perspective, you do exactly what we want you to do, right? We're not watching our guy getting ready to block or almost blocking because we've got this small space that number one and number two receiver to the left side of the formation are in. So you're able to transition your eyes and help out, maybe a little too helpful in this case, but the principle of I don't need to watch him just because he's my guy. Let me officiate something, I think illustrated really well here too.
No, I mean, whenever I watch my video, I think the first thing I'm looking at is mechanics more than mechanics first, then judgment. And mechanically, I'm happy with how I worked it. I'm stationary. I like that. I like that I transitioned. It was just a matter of the process. And I didn't trust myself initially to know that this was within the 5 yards. And that kind of, just that instance, I think just crept. It's a millisecond. It's a half of a second, if that. And it was enough time for me to get off of the fact, okay, was this truly back towards the original position of the ball, which of course it's not. But in that time, that's when my mind is worried about that 5 yard aspect that then I see the guys, kind of laying on top of one another at a diagonal, and it cemented it to me incorrectly. And that's, from a process standpoint, I had to learn from that and move forward.
Hey, another quick question, kind of ancillary, but Brandon, you're the referee here, that Corey comes and reports to. Any indication in his body language? Because I know, I think that you're really adept at kind of reading guys when they're communicating to you on the field. Anything to you that maybe he's not 100 on this, or is it just very confident?
The only chink in the armor, and Corey does a phenomenal job reporting fouls. Seriously, phenomenal. The only chink in the armor was when, and you referred to it, I think you had to kind of drive by the umpire to talk about the 5 yard aspect. So the only thing in my mind is, when you ruled out the 5 yard aspect, which I thought was good, but the only thing in my mind was like, well, wait a second. If it's a illegal crackback, why the heck does he care if it's 5 yards or not? But I didn't capitalize on that thought enough. Because I remember that right there, we're saying, okay, illegal crackback, because I want to make that a part of my announcement. But I remember having that little thought in my mind, but probably wasn't good enough to capitalize. And I don't know if I would have even talked you out of it. I couldn't provide any information, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if it would have been enough, because in my mind, I was cemented that it was back towards the ball. Just because what my mind recalled was that angle that we focused on earlier, and that was the wrong part of the block to focus on.
Right.
That was more of the result of the block versus the block itself. And it's almost like not seeing the whole thing and throwing on something you don't see the whole thing. But it sounds like Tuta's going to show us how to do that here in a little bit.
The only one last aspect of this play is really the result of this play is like, the offense is short of the line to gain. And it was third down. So the defense has an option. Look at how efficient this was. I mean, so we could either pretend like we nailed this, or we maybe didn't even ask the defense. But actually, I believe it was the field judge, if I'm not mistaken, who was already over with the defensive coach asking him, hey, do you want 4th and short or 3rd and forever? And they actually took 3rd and forever here for field position. So, everybody's part of the crew, right? Because you could easily just decline this for 4th down, and this is a decision. I mean, it's going to be 4th and 2, force them to punt maybe, but no, defense wanted to push them back. And here, let's say we maybe don't ask, you just kind of go, personal foul, legal block below the waist, offense number, whatever, 15-yard penalty, 3rd down. If the defensive coach comes screaming at us saying, no, we want 4th and 2, or better yet, wait, what was the result of that play? Then, and he wants to change what we did without asking him, then we just change it. We change it. No questions asked. We just changed it. You know, the referee can just say, you know, the defense has elected to decline the penalty. It's 4th down. In that case, we just got to be sure we still have that dead ball spot. So a lot of process things going on this play.
You know, that's a good point, and maybe it's something that, you know, we can learn from coaches with situational awareness, because normally a 4th and 2, I think most times they're going to decline it to punt. But I mean, look at the situation of the game. You know, the offensive team is down 20 points midway through the second quarter. So I think the defensive coach probably recognized that, hey, this is their time, that, you know, they don't want to get down any further. So, you know, maybe if this is a tighter ball game, it's a different situation. They do decline that, but, you know, maybe this is something where the score and the situation dictated that coach's decision. I don't know. I mean, that's just something I thought of just watching this play again right now.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to put a bow, not a bow, but obviously that kind of indicates that y'all are we're droning on too long. But I want to talk about scouting. Brandon, I know you love when we do scouting reports and we talk about this player has 800 yards rushing and this player has 1,600 yards passing.
Yeah.
When we scout teams, and this really goes back like 10 points ago, when we were talking about the line judge being able to work the forward backward aspect, and the headline judge being able to get his or her eyes out in front a little quicker. When we scout, and I'm saying this particularly because we scouted this team, I think our crew had them twice this year. And one thing that was very apparent is they throw a lot of lateral passes that are really close to either forward or backwards. So when we recognize that, then we can think about situations like this and better prepare ourselves as a crew to understand who's going to work forward backwards, who's going to work blocks, who's going to wait. What about if the pass goes to the head line judge side? Line judge, are you still going to be primary on forward backwards? You know, those are the type of things that when we talk about scouting, for me, when I scout, I like to turn on plays and just watch the team's offense. And don't even necessarily watch the whole play, but just watch how they line up, what formations they line up in, and then the pass plays, where are they going?
It's a great point. And, you know, I think there's times where there's a lot of effort put into that, Tuta. And then the bottom line is when we do that, we need everybody on the crew to really engage in that process. You know, otherwise it just becomes quite just a meaningless waste of time. So we really need everybody on the crew to engage and participate and interact with when we do those exercises in pregame. And I think we've all had crews where there's, you know, a certain part of the crew that is highly receptive, highly engaged in that. And then unfortunately we've had crews where there's a part of the crew that's not. And that is just something that I would hope, as somebody who's working to try to be the best official they can, if we got a crew meeting and somebody's put together a bunch of plays, they put it together for a reason. Engage in that and be so engaged in it that it's almost like, okay, that's enough. You know, we got you. We got what you did. Rather than trying to pull somebody out from never saying a word about something. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
I would add to that, and I agree absolutely. And I think that's one of the areas I've grown a lot in over the years, because it took me a while to connect the value of the scouting process. But anyways, I think not only do we need to engage when we've had a crew member go through that process, but also we need, as individuals throughout the course of a pregame week, when we're preparing to officiate two teams, to do our own scouting. Because the reality is, I'm going to look at plays and I'm going to try to identify things that are relevant to the crew in general. But the reality is that my lens is going to be for my responsibilities. And I'm going to notice first the things that are going to impact the way that I'm going to officiate. And so, you know, it's maybe something from the referee or umpire perspective that's a little bit more nuanced that I don't pick up on just because that's not my context. So I'm going to try and share all of those things with the crew. However, if as individuals, we're not doing our own scouting report or scouting process, rather, throughout the course of the week, we're going to miss probably something that's going to help us be even more effective once we step out on the field. So Yeah, let's engage when that person has gone through the work, but let's make sure as individuals we're doing our due diligence as well.
You want to talk about, is this going to be a pass play and then some line blocking mechanics?
It is. It's a pass play, and I missed a humongous hold on the right tackle. And just if you stop on this particular screenshot, you can tell I'm standing at 12 and a half yards.
Yeah.
I do not stand at 12 and a half yards. I stand
you-
at 15 yards every time.
You look a little narrow also just from this, and maybe you'll move out, but would you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I actually wasn't standing. This is just a still shot because
Okay.
where the camera turned on, but I wasn't standing. I was moving. So to set up the play, this is late in the game. The team on offense is down by 2 scores, and they're in a hurry up mode trying to get downfield and score really quickly. The previous play, we had a flag pickup. I believe one of the officials had a flag for holding, and we ended up picking up the flag. We didn't enforce it. It was a 4th down play that resulted in a 1st down. So this was 1st and 10 after a flag pickup. So I set all of that stuff up to say the clock is stopped. I think one of my major issues was I was just moving too fast. So I'll just let the play run, and we're watching the right tackle. And then as soon as the play was over, the kid got up and looked at me, and he was like, "Man, I got held." And I was like, "I know, man, I missed it." Number 40, he was upset. So I totally missed it. And I'm gonna go back to the end zone view, which kind of really sets up perfectly what happened. See, the ball isn't snapped yet, and look at my eyes. Like, what the
Wait.
hell am I doing?
Right. You think you're looking at the clock or?
No, I was counting my players. There's so many things I was
Oh,
doing,
yeah.
and I mean, what is this? What is this? Why am I even looking over here? I'm not in a position I really want to be in to officiate the play. I'm moving, and I think knowing that we had a stopped clock going to a running clock, I probably should have just slowed down, composed myself, got to where I wanted to be, then wound the clock, pointed the center judge off, and then wound the clock and blew the whistle. But I didn't. I compressed all of my pre-snap actions, and let's see if I go back a little bit more. You can see I'm walking backwards. I had just finished winding the clock. You can see my hand.
Okay. So we've wound the clock. Okay.
Wound the clock. I wish I don't know how to do slow-mo on this doggone thing.
Just use your
But you can see I'm moving, and now look, I'm looking out to the left, the right, because I'm probably trying to count the 11th player. So now I'm throwing my hand up
signal
on the snap, and now I'm
I laugh because I mean I'm there. I'm with you.
exactly.
You know, this.
So guess what I decided to do on this play, Brandon? I'll just watch the quarterback then. No problem.
Yeah.
At least I know he won't get hurt, right?
Yeah.
Golly. So now, of course, the kid gets yanked down, and I didn't see any of it. Well, actually, I'm lying. I saw it out my peripheral vision.
Yep.
And I think my takeaway on this play, and obviously I'm bouncing this idea off of you, stopped clock, going to a running clock, team is in a hurry up mode. I probably need to compose myself, slow down, really work all of my pre-snap processes, and ensure I have the time to do that, and especially get in the correct position before letting the play start.
I want to quickly reset the situation just so I think that I'm clear and maybe everybody else is. So the play prior was a flag pickup. So we had a flag down.
That's
Obviously, we stopped the clock after the play. Somebody comes in, discusses, pick it up. You make the announcement, no foul, blah, blah, blah. Now we're going to go here.
yes.
And like you said, you're going to wind the clock on the ready for play.
That's correct. It's
Okay.
1st and 10. The previous play was 4th and 7.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's not like it was the result of the play was a first down and you got to make a decision of when to wind the clock and all those kinds
No,
of things. No, no, no.
no.
This is administrative
Stop.
stoppage.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we would definitely want to just be a little bit more deliberate and structured with putting the ball back in play. Because I don't know. Like, did you point the center judge off already? Was he ever holding? I know the
He
center
was holding.
judge. Yeah, he's pretty good at that.
He was,
Um,
and I told the quarterback, just wait for my whistle.
okay.
So I did all of that kind of stuff, except I didn't get myself prepared to work the play.
Right. And look at what happens. You know.
Yes.
And let's be honest. Was this the only time this season that you weren't prepared to work a play? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Right.
This is just the time that, you know, it bit you. So this didn't just happen spontaneously on this play. And I'm not saying you developed bad habits, but I'm actually really happy for you that this happened because it highlighted, you know, and for all of us, right? It highlights the need. Just what do we actually have to do to prepare ourselves to work the play, you know, to the highest quality possible?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that really is what touches on our pre-snap routine, which, you know, maybe we'll do a session on pre-snap routine. It seems like a nothing, mundane, ridiculous thing. Oh, well, here's my list of things. Well, that's not necessarily true because, and I'll tell you, Brandon, because you said this is not the only time I've done this. If this is in the middle of the second quarter and we're dealing with a team that does not snap the ball quickly, who's not in a hurry up mode, it's probably not that big a deal if I wind the clock when I'm at 12 yards backing up to my position.
Yep.
Because they're probably not about to snap the ball. So
Right.
I probably have a little bit more time. But that's not the situation we were in this particular situation. So my pre-snap process really needs to change, adjust based
Thank you.
on the situation that presents itself.
The fallacy of pre-snap routine is that it's pictured or described as some, you know, set in stone checklist.
Exactly.
It is not a set in stone checklist because if it was, well, if it is, this happens.
Right.
Right. Because you're still trying to, I mean, I understand that you're trying to count 11. Obviously we got to count every play, you know, but part of the whole thought and what drives a pre-snap routine in terms of what are the boxes I need to check for this specific situation is the motivation of team A. How fast are they going? What do I need to prioritize based on the answer to that question? You know, so here, yeah, I think maybe we could have let the center judge just hunker down there for a second, throwing up a stop sign, been very, very deliberate, get back to where you're comfortable. You got your count, boom, point the center judge off, start the clock. They can snap the ball and it's real clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's much easier said than done.
Right. Obviously, because we're looking at somebody who didn't do it very well at all on this play. And then of course, you know, this kind of goes into also working one play at a time. This was a very difficult game where we had some really difficult situations that occurred early in the game. We had a fall backwards pass that maybe was, maybe wasn't. We had a player out of bounds at the end of the half where I didn't know whether he was in bounds or out of bounds, and I almost robbed the team of an opportunity to kick a field goal to end the half. We had a lot of things in this game that, you know, and me being myself, I'm carrying all of the weight of all of those things into this particular situation. And I guarantee it, all of that stuff just adds up. And, you know, we got to learn how to work one play at a time. And I don't know how to do that yet because I haven't mastered that yet. But that's one thing I really need to figure out. Man, work this particular play. You can't work all those other plays. They're gone. But that's another thing that probably, you know, impacted my ability to really work this play.
That's such a great point too, Todd. We say that so often, and you know, rightfully so, because that matters. You know, from just a cognitive processing standpoint. But holy cow, I don't like, I don't know that there's anything more difficult on the field than erasing, especially if it's poor, erasing something that's already happened and just focusing on what's in front of you.
Right.
Man, that's such a good point.
I think the psychology of that is interesting too. Like why do you just said I'm carrying all of that into this play. And I don't know if you mean that literally, but the fact is you are kind of dragging that behind you as the game goes along, right?
Yes.
So it's a burden is really what you're saying.
Correct.
So why? Like I wonder what's under the hood there. From a psychology standpoint, are we, and I'm getting away from you, but just talking generically, are we like fearful of an evaluation perhaps? I think some officials would say yes. Are we worried that the coach has a bad opinion of us?
Right.
Because he's mad. Okay, I think some officials would say yes to that, not all. What else? I mean, so I think it's just important, like whatever it is for you, like why are we carrying that? Are we worried about the perception of our reputation among our peer officials?
That's right.
Right?
That's
Not
right.
pure officials. Well, maybe pure, but no, our peers in officiating. Oh, there's somebody watching this game that means a lot to me, and now he's going to think I'm a terrible official.
Right.
I think all those things, to a degree, maybe, and I think part of your point is that it could be individualized, right?
Right. Exactly. So whatever the personal kind of fear trigger is, it's okay. Like we don't just have to say, well, I'm not scared of anything. I mean, whatever. Scared and fear, I don't know if that's the right word, but I think you guys know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
The bottom line is like, let's just identify it and work with it, because if we can't identify and work with it, then we have no chance.
Yeah.
Right.
I think another element of it, Brandon, you guys interested to hear if you agree, but there's an emotional aspect too, where like, it just doesn't feel good. If you've made a mistake, like there's a disappointment that you're carrying. So there's I don't know the difference between the psychological and the emotional. I'm not
right
an expert, but like there's an emotional attachment there too that you've got to be able to identify. And I think if you're going to proactively battle it, which we need to, you've got to recognize that also.
So while we're on the couch in the psychiatrist's office, is it psychologist or psychiatrist? I guess it's a psychiatrist.
Psychiatrists can give you drugs.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want one. I don't want that. What's the other dude? The other lady, the psychologist.
Psychologist or therapist, maybe.
Yeah. So when we're on the couch in Dr. Dweck's, we'll just say that Dr. Dweck, who Daniel introduced us to, who we love.
Yeah.
Man, it's interesting what you just mentioned, what y'all were just talking about, and I guess I'll expose myself a little bit here. Number one, I'm an unrealistic perfectionist.
So you're talking expectations.
Yes, I want to be perfect on every play. I want to work every play perfectly. Number two, I never actually thought about it until you just made talk of it, Brandon, about perception. I probably, in my first year of being a referee, wanted everybody to know that, man, this dude really can work this position. So I'm probably carrying around that burden from week 1 all the way to week 10 and beyond, because I want everybody to know, yeah, I can work referee. Yeah, I'm a good referee. And that's
awesome.
Unfortunate to carry that around, but I probably am carrying that around.
It's amazing. Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Well, I thought it brings me back. I think it was last week too, Ty, you mentioned about your goal is to be the best referee in the Big 12.
That's correct.
Which I think we all have that goal relative to our position, or maybe just in general. But the way you frame that is really important, because if you're framing that in the context of what Brandon does, or what, another referee, Brad Van Vark is doing, if you frame it in that context, well, you've really entered the potential to really become kind of a fixed state, to where you're always worried about what somebody else is doing. Right. But if you frame it in the context of, well, the only way I'm going to be better than Brandon, Brad, and whoever else is if I continually improve myself. Right. Now you can focus on and really then it becomes much more about you just continuing to improve and get better, because you really can't control what they do or don't.
Correct.
But I think that goes to your point of, like, kind of searching for that identity. Man, I need everybody to know that I can work this position, which I said awesome when you said that, because I think it's really cool that you identify that. And then we're willing to share that with the group.
That's so good. So like if part of your evaluation is you include the performance of another official at your same position that you're so-called competing with, that's really pointless.
It is, absolutely.
Right? So, okay, how did my week go? Well, it looks like I had a better game than Tuta.
Right.
What, I mean, what?
Right.
That gets us nowhere.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Whereas look, breaking this play down, trying to understand why was I carrying the burden, whatever, what could I have done differently with the center judge, the process, communication to the quarterback, my positioning, my sequencing of pre-snap, my priority, those are real tangible things that we can improve on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, let's get to the punchline then. And this is something else I was thinking about, Brandon. So that we were talking about, in your play, you were talking about not throwing a flag if you don't see everything. Okay, in this situation, I cannot see, even if I was appropriately working the play, which clearly I'm not. I'm looking at the quarterback do nothing. Even if I was actually working this play the way I should, I cannot see the right tackle's hand. I still cannot see the right tackle's hand. I still cannot totally see the right tackle's hand. I can kind of see body posture and unnatural movement by the defender, but I can't see his hand. Oh, shoot. What the?
Yeah, I see where you're going.
So the point I'm making, and I guess the question I'm asking is not even a point because I don't know the answer. Can we throw a flag on a fouling action, which I believe we can, because had I been looking at this, I would have easily thrown my flag because it's clear and obvious this dude got yanked down, but I can't see the right tackle's hand to confirm that he was yanked down. I think I got a reverse end zone view as well.
Right here.
So see, I can't see his hand, but one thing I know is that is not a natural body. That's not natural at all. So I know that the defender got yanked down, but I can't see the right tackle's hand. So speak to that if you can.
Sure.
You're talking about not being able to see, but still not throwing a flag if you don't see.
Right. Okay. But we do see this. So go back to let's just step through this block if we can. No, right here. If we can try to step through this block, use your arrow keys maybe for the slow motion. But anyways, so
you just taught me something.
Yep. So look at and we already buried this, but your head is obviously too far.
You know that?
Yeah, I know. I'm doing okay. Yeah, your head is too far to the left. So we've already noticed that, right?
That's correct.
Okay, if we're working this block perfectly at this point, you're like, first red flag. Defender beats the blocker.
He's beyond him, basically.
Yes. Yep. And there's no rip move here. I mean, even in a rip move, there can be holding. We don't need to even go into that. But I mean, this is just a rusher. He's not ripping. He's just trying to get around this guy. And he's accomplished that goal. Okay, let's go a couple more frames. All right, so we're still processing. Like I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's beat. He's gonna get held. He's gonna get held. He's beat. He's okay, and he's still engaged. I know he's engaged. Like it's not like there's air between that. I know I can't see the right hand of the blocker who does the grab and pull and all that stuff, but there's clearly no space between the two players. Keep going.
Right. So hold on. Let me stop you right there because and obviously we can't do this on the field and stop ourselves on the field, but I think we can and we should. And one thing I always was so impressed with Daniel is he can do this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. If this number 40 goes down to the ground towards me, it would be a really strong indication that he was pushed or ridden to the ground.
Exactly.
So if I'm preparing to continue working this block, I can tell myself, well, if he comes falling towards me, then it's likely not a foul.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a great point. Oh. All right. Right. So you just talked about the kind of the body language and body posture, mechanics or whatever of this defender. And that's what we want to watch. It doesn't do us honestly, we don't call much holding by watching the offensive player,
Right.
really, if you think about it.
And
So
right,
that's
right.
why I'm saying we really did see this, because if you keep going, you know he's beat, you know he's reaching, you know he's, and then all of a sudden this very unnatural upper body hinge and turn and, you know, being kind of torqued to the ground.
Right.
There's no Division I, Division II, you know, college of the blind, whatever you want to say. There's no athlete in the world who has a chance to sack the quarterback that would do that.
Exactly.
And we can process all of these little details of like, look, the left hand of the blocker is out, but the right hand isn't.
Yeah.
It's in there. It's clearly got him, and it's clearly part of this blocking action. And okay, you know, so to me, I think I don't understand that we don't see the actual fingers grabbing the jersey, but we see this to make this
Right.
call.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That and that's pretty much where I was going when I was saying, yeah, maybe if you know when you made the point about not throwing a flag if you don't see it all.
Right.
Well,
Here's the
we
difference.
don't have to see it all on this to know that this is a clear and obvious hold.
Here's the difference. Blocks below the waist are more spontaneous. It's the force of the contact. Boom. It happens and it's over.
Yeah,
Holds happen over a spectrum of time. They're
That's
more
right.
of a process foul. You know, if you ever call holding based on one single action, you're likely going to be wrong.
Right.
You've got to put it all together. What did we just talk about? The block, you know, the defender beats the blocker, right? Blocker's still engaged.
Right.
Unnatural body movements by the player being blocked.
Right.
Twisted to the ground in a very unnaturally athletic, you know, way.
Right.
So all of those, we almost have to always have some of those aspects stacked together to create you know, to make the decision to have a quality call for offensive holding. And if we don't, we're very likely going to have a non-quality call for offensive holding.
Because even right here, he could still ride the defender beyond the quarterback.
He could, or the defender here, the defender could slap his hands down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And but then he'd just be running free.
Yeah.
And we would notice that.
Right.
So it's really a comprehensive kind of consideration, is what I'm hearing you guys say, which this is really good. But the alternative is it's reasonable that something could happen here right now where we haven't paused to 40 that could give you pause, right, Tuta, where you're not sure, man, maybe there's a restriction there because of his right hand, or maybe, I don't know, maybe he slips or whatever. And in that case,
yes,
would you be comfortable then throwing it, or then do you need to see the hand to know that he grabbed him and actually created that restriction?
It would depend on what happens with the defender's body, because.
So, but just think about it like this. Whatever happens with a defender's body, you're on the field, put yourself in that place. You're just unsure. It doesn't scream OH to this degree like this does, where he gets torqued down to the ground.
Right.
But there's something there that maybe
yes.
is
OH. I see what you're saying. Yes. Yes.
So then in that case, though, if you're unsure, right, like that could be OH, that could not be OH. Are you comfortable now throwing that flag without seeing the right hand and knowing that there's a grab and a restrict?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So I guess what you're saying is, let's say 40 kind of breaks away from, at this moment, kind of breaks away from the engagement. And it's you can kind of see maybe that there's a little bit of a twist potentially. Is that what you're getting at?
That's exactly right. You said it way better.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. I would not throw a flag in that case, because it's not an overt enough reaction, or whatever word to use, by the defensive player. But once we start getting to this point where this dude is now face planting, I mean, no defender is trying to face plant when he has a clear, shot at the quarterback.
Totally agree. Good stuff.
And look, if this is the first time you're on the field and you ever see body action like this, because to your point, without seeing the grab, probably not going to call it. So it's very important, man, to study all these player actions and these things like this. So you didn't call it for other reasons than that, but just the point,
exactly.
Because these can definitely surprise you.
I didn't call it because I knew for a fact that this dude had the ball in his hand.
He does. I mean, he's holding that ball.
Yes.
You got the grip of the ball. You got everything right there.
Exactly.
His pointer
Exactly.
finger is on the upper third quadrant of the ball.
That's correct.
That's a great play. Appreciate that.
All right. So, continuing with the trend of, I don't want to say subpar officiating, but
Well,
Yeah.
maybe not ideal officiating. Got two plays here that we're going to watch back to back. And it's interesting because they're very different plays. One's a punt and involves a potential, or rather an actual block in the back. And the other one is a run play from scrimmage that involves an OH. But there's a principle here that for me is really important and something I'm continually working on, and hopefully speaks to at least one other person out there who is going to watch this. But let's just watch the play. Again, we're going to have a punt, and the punt's going to hit the ground around the 24-yard line, and it's just going to take an awful bounce back towards the goal line. So right here you can see both the punt returner and I'm the back judge retreating towards the goal line, and at this point really just praying feverishly that this ball just touches down in the end zone untouched by B, so we can just kill it and move on to the next play. And I would have thought that the punt returner was praying the same thing. However, he wasn't, because we're going to keep going here. And now he's going to pick up the ball around the 4-yard line. So you can kind of see my shadow over here by the bug, but I'm already in the end zone. And what's going to happen is the punt returner is going to cross my face, but he's going to continue to retreat, and I'm going to continue to back up. And right there, we're going to see a suspect block. So I'm going to rewind this to about, let's go right here. Because at this point, I've adjusted my vision as the back judge from the punt returner, who's now clearly possessed the ball and transitioned to a runner, to looking for something out in front of him. And it's, my eyes went right here very naturally. He's got his hand up. He's trying to clear a path. And so this is where I went visually, and I think that's okay. That's appropriate. But as we progress the video, right about now, I've made up my mind, probably 2 steps, probably about, well, maybe 1 step. Right now, I feel very comfortable. I don't know what it looks like just watching it on film to somebody who's novel to this play, who's never seen it. But I felt very comfortable that he was going to get to this young man's shoulder and make a legal screen block. And so there's a couple of lessons here, I think, that we can learn. And one of them's, the first one is simply, that's great. I think there's value in kind of identifying those body positions and starting to have an inkling of what's going to happen. However, we can't stop there, right? Brandon mentioned this earlier when he was talking about, down and distance and how that impacts his preparation for the next play. It's the same thing inside of the play. I think I'm okay with kind of having that internal discussion, but I'm not okay with making a decision already, right? The difference between anticipating and assuming. And so maybe assumed a little bit here, because what we're going to see is that's a block in the back, folks. He uses his body right into the back of, I don't know if you can tell on the video. I think that's B33 or 35 maybe, or 19 rather, that guy. 33 is the blocker. Sorry for all that tongue-tiedness, but 33 is the blocker. That's a block in the back right there. And when we talk about point of attack, that's a pretty good definition of point of attack, because there's a really good chance that that guy in white is going to make the tackle if he's not blocked illegally. All right, so before we move on to the next point I want to make is, let's just look at what happens. That block was around what, the 3-yard line, and now we have a return down to about the B49-yard line. So really significant penalty missing this block of, 45 yards almost. So here's the next point, right? Because I had in my head become comfortable with the idea that this was already going to be a side block, I don't give this block the appropriate visual attention. And that's really kind of the punchline, to use Tutan's language, is visual discipline. Because if you can see from the end zone angle, which has also been lost forever in cyberspace, at least for me anyway, you would see that my head continues to rotate very smoothly from over here, where I started with a returner, all the way around, almost like I'm following the ball carrier. Now, I was on the field, and I can tell you that that wasn't the case. But if you watch my hat, and we've talked about this principle before, you can tell where I'm looking. I had made up my mind that this was going to be okay on the shoulder. And so while I watched it, I just moved right past it. And this was an awesome learning experience for me that was brought to my attention by the supervisor, is that for me to give this the appropriate visual attention, you're going to see me stop and process all of the elements of what happens here, and then move on to whatever's next down here in front of the ball carrier, right? So this was a really big play, a really significant miss. It's been a few years now, but a fairly relevant game at the time it was in the season. And for me, that idea of, one, let's not make assumptions, let's anticipate, but let's not decide already. And we'll see a little bit of it here. And you could see how quick I rotate from that end zone. I wish you could really slow it down and see my head, but you're going to see me just kind of follow the ball carrier. We've talked about that smooth pursuit idea, really, which is more relevant to seeing action or not seeing action. And again, I officiated this block, but to see my eyes stop, my hat stop, and process all of it, maybe I make the correct decision, right? Maybe I just don't gloss over it like I did. So that idea of visual discipline is something that I think is really, really important for us, because we can identify where we're supposed to be looking, but then we have to observe it correctly from just a mechanics perspective, or like a physiological perspective relative to our eyes. Okay, so let's move on to the next play here.
Hold on, Daniel. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Go to the next play. I want to throw a concept out there that you shared a book with me. I don't remember the name of the book, but it's very, very, very interesting and ironic. Right, probably a week after this happened, and we had a not so pleasant interaction with the supervisor, there was a concept that I was introduced to called confirmation bias. And it was from one of the books that you recommended for me to read. And confirmation bias, for everyone out there, is basically, it says the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs or theories. So what you mentioned, Daniel, is that you believed that this block was going to be a legal block. And even though your eyes showed you that it wasn't a legal block, you had already made up your mind that it was a legal block. So I don't even know what word to use. And I'm saying you, full disclosure, I was the side judge in this game, and I had the same I worked this play the exact same way that Daniel did. I just naturally assumed that block would be legal, and confirmation bias did not allow me to actually see the action and realize that it was a foul.
Yeah, that's a great point. I had forgotten all about that, and I was going to try to protect you, man, and leave you out of this, but
no, I'll get in on it.
That wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, the book is The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor.
Yes,
really great book. It would just to plug it for anybody who's out there. Something that's been. Let's go back just to finish this up, and really where it comes from a lot of times is the medical field, and when doctors get into the idea of anchored into a diagnosis, and that's the language the book uses, of anchored in. It's really, really challenging, even presented with new facts, to get them to adjust or shift their diagnosis. And that's exactly what this is. And there's another element, funny enough, from that book also, and it's expectancy theory, which if you expect things to happen a certain way, you kind of paint them into a picture once they happen to try to fit that narrative you already created for yourself. And both of those fit in right here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that confirmation bias, we had already decided that it was a legal block, and so we didn't give it the appropriate attention. And listen, it's twofold, because that confirmation bias maybe have prevented me, even if I officiate it very well from a visual perspective, I might have not changed my mind, but at least I would have given myself the opportunity to. The problem is the confirmation bias and the expectancy of what was going to happen didn't even give me the opportunity to officiate it visually the appropriate way. So, yeah.
I think expectancy theory is actually the better application here, Daniel. Now that you mention it.
I think they both work, but yeah.
How about the referee allowing TV to go to a break here? That's pretty poor too.
Well, that's because the referee didn't realize that the punter was getting held, and the side judge was attempting to tell the referee, man, that was a hold. The punter got held. And then the referee was like, oh, no way.
No way.
And you can see it right at the end of the play. The kid has a really good, strong grip on the punter, but probably not a strong right there. At the
right as he steps out of bounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we had that decision to make. The kicking team was going ballistic because they thought we had missed a block in the back.
Yes.
And TV wants a break.
This was a crazy play.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when y'all start working with, red hats and TV and all that stuff, this is a huge momentum play for the receiving team, since we didn't call the block in the back. The game wants the receiving team to be able to capitalize on the momentum, and 2.5 minute TV break tends to not allow for momentum to proceed.
Right. And when I try to communicate to the referee, let's not go, not that I did in that play, but in previous circumstances, he doesn't listen anyway. So I don't know how that builds upon your point. I just wanted to say it.
I was wondering that too.
Okay, so let's watch a similar play. And there's a little bit of judgment here, and not really my point, but certainly willing to get into that with anybody that's interested on the panel today. But we've got a run play. Well, let's back up. We've got a 2x2 formation. I believe the line judge is to the top of the screen. We've got the headline judge to the bottom of the screen. So just a regular scrimmage formation. I gave it away. It's going to be a run play. So very different kind of football play from what we just watched. But this is 3 years later. Yeah, 3 years later, and a similar kind of little bit different in terms of the expectancy theory that Tuta and confirmation bias that Tuta brought up. But similar in the sense of lack of visual discipline. So something I'm really and really after this play and after this week, although this was late in the season, something that I really identified and have put into some practices in place to work on. But so, from a back judge perspective, this is where I am again because the line judge is up here at the top. So he's on the back, and we've got the field judge up here, and the play is going to go around to the right side. So right now, well, you know what? Let's do this. I think this would be helpful. Okay, so let's just talk about initial key and visually what we're doing. We've talked a lot about this. Field judge guy has a lot of space. My guy has a lot of space. So I'm going to start right here on the same side as my key, just to help me identify what kind of play we're going to be officiating. So right now I know it's a run play, right? He's doing, kind of a reach block where he's going to try to get to the second level. At about this point, I can feel that it's coming to where my initial keys block is going to be relevant, meaning I can feel the flow of the play coming this way, right? All these guys, the tackle's doing that kind of reach where he wants to seal somebody, it looks like. I can feel the running back coming out this way. So now visually, I need to know that my initial key responsibility is going to be relevant. So I need to get my eyes back to him, right? And right about this time, this is what I do. I get right where I need to be, and I'm feeling so great about it. Boom, block right here, and then a little bit of separation. Do you see that? Just a touch of separation. and then more block as the ball carrier goes through the hole. Let's see if our end zone view helps us. Okay, so this is after the separation. Let's get to the TV, and then we're going to see some suspect action by the guy number 0 for Team A on top of, or blocking rather, Team 0 for Team B. So right here, we've got a left arm. His feet are in kind of okay position until the defender tries to lunge, and we're going to see him turn him around as the ball carrier breaks through the hole. Now, however you feel about that block.
We'll read from Howard and the.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Great
Now,
ball.
however
First
you
down
feel
at the
about that block,
49.
here's what my point is, and what's concerning to me is right now, I'm right on this block, and I feel fantastic about it, like I mentioned. But at this point, they separate. And at that point, I identified that he had blocked him legally, and I need to get somewhere else to officiate. Okay, so that's the punchline. That's the visual discipline I'm talking about. So let's go back to the end zone view. All right. So he had already done that separation that I talked about right now. So after they separated and before they collision again, I moved my eyes into right here to find this block, which, by the way, is probably what my umpire is doing also. And I had a sense that something weird happens here after they re-engage, but I really didn't watch it. I didn't officiate it. That bothered me.
First down at the 49.
Because I left him right now. I got off of him, even though this is my initial key, even though this is absolutely point of attack, even though the running back's going to come right off this block. I got off him, I would say, for like, geez, just a split second, a fraction of a second, whatever measurement of time we want to use there. And I left it alone. And so I didn't have a really clear opinion about whether or not this block qualifies or not. So again, same principle as the last play. We're just not being visually disciplined, put me at a disadvantage. And so for me, the takeaway was, if I feel like I do this often, and I've never recognized it in the running game, is I'm so quick to find the next threat that I don't officiate all the way through that initial threat. And I just need to stay with this guy throughout this block. Now, listen, once the ball carrier breaks through, like, I don't need to be watching it now, but I needed to watch it all the way through that action. So just, for me, a really good learning play in terms of how I approach blocks in front of the ball carrier and the running game. And again, I don't know if anybody else has had that kind of gone through that process, but I thought could maybe be beneficial for some folks out there. You guys have any questions or anything that you want to add?
So you eliminated the threat before the threat was really no longer a threat.
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Tuta.
So you eliminated the threat in your mind before the threat was actually, in reality, no longer a threat.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Premature.
Prematurely, correct. And maybe you can say well-intended to try and find something else to officiate that mattered, but
sure, absolutely well-intended.
Just poor visual discipline / mechanics for this play.
Yeah.
And again, for me, and let me encourage you to do this when you evaluate yourself. I don't know that this practice had cost me previously, right? Like I don't know that I felt like, oh, maybe I missed something because I got off of it too fast. But I was able to recognize that, you know what, I've done this. I wouldn't say it's a habit, but I've done this before. This is something I need to eliminate, where I leave a potential threat too quickly in an effort to find a new threat when I need to work it all the way through the block, whether it's, relative to a low block, well, I guess maybe not a low block, but a potential block in the back where there's initial contact to the side or a potential hold. So again, good,
But I think
good play for me.
it is good. I think I think you're okay with that practice because a lot of times the error we make is not getting away from a matchup too fast. It's
Yeah.
staying on a matchup too long
That's a
and
great
not getting to another matchup. So my guess is if somebody could put statistics to it, when players disengage, that very, very rarely turns into a foul. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, I don't feel like we're playing the result a little bit on this play, but I get the point too.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. And I agree. I think that from if like really broad perspective in officiating, we probably get in trouble for staying too long. That's never really been a problem for me. But wouldn't you agree, Brandon, that there is a medium there, right? There is the potential to get away from it too fast. And maybe it is a little results focused here because like you said, once they separate, usually you're good, but you got to take into all of the factors here. You've got to take into the factor that one, that's my initial key. There's probably nobody else watching him. Two, he's still in front of the runner. And three, the runner's coming right off his backside. And so I think when you kind of take into consideration all of those factors, then even though they separated, like just recognize those things. And in this instance, better to stay with him a little bit. So that's really good. That's really good. That even just this conversation has helped me kind of evolve how I'm thinking about this and how it applies to future plays.
And then with a play like this, really good self-evaluation by you. And then hopefully we would get the same self-evaluation from some of the other positions because there's a very high probability if we're progressing through the play properly that another official would see this, and so hopefully somebody would step up in a crew meeting if this was a play of, and say, oh man, I should have had that too,
Well, what about the distinction between separation and disengagement? Because I think disengagement maybe is more of a spectrum and separation is more of an instantaneous thought or idea.
Disengagement isn't final just because there's separation.
Right. And perhaps if we see separation, maybe we can't eliminate it as a threat, but if we see disengagement, then we're more successful eliminating that as a threat.
Yeah, that's a really good distinction. I like that a lot.
Like the line of scrimmage official probably has a really interesting progression here as well, because there's a hold by the right tackle or guard. I'm not sure, number 52 on offense. There's holding there. So it's like who was looking at that? That's the right guard besides the referee, or maybe the referee wasn't, or did his feet stumble? It's very possible his feet stumbled, but kind of back to Tuta's play, that's pretty good body action that indicates offensive holding. That's offensive holding. Okay, so maybe the line judge got caught up on that, but a lot of times we want the line judge to get to these blocks as well. So just really good. This would be a great crew mechanics discussion that we all love to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, so why do we officiate? Why do we officiate? I know I'm kind of going off the rails a little bit here. I know I officiate because I absolutely love football. I love to experience football. I love to experience college football. And ironically enough, two of my most challenging games from a interaction with the coordinator standpoint happen to be two of the most enjoyable and fulfilling games I've ever been a part of. So Daniel, I'm gonna share my screen and y'all will remember this. That play, the first play that you showed, Daniel, was from a game that was fairly significant. And this is what happened at the end of the game. And I just want to share this. I guess I'm just sharing a bit of myself. I intentionally slowly walked into the locker room. I know a lot of times, we have to get off the field, hurry up and get off the field. Well, we knew they were going to rush the field because the fans had started coming down. And I said, you know what? I've never been in a situation like this and I'm going to love it. and I intentionally slowly walked through the crowd. I thought that was one of my, I mean, I just love this experience. And for me, this is what college football is all about. And this is why I absolutely love what I do and love what we do. And it's ironic, this game happened to be one of the most difficult in retrospect because of that play and the blowback that we got from that particular play. But ironically enough, it was one of my most enjoyable experiences. I'll never forget it.
That's really cool. Yeah, and I would certainly echo that, especially that part, just where we were in our careers. Just an awesome experience. Can't wait for college football to get back to this, hopefully in the very near future.